Back to that developing story, President Trump is weighing in on the upcoming mayoral race in the district. He warned today that if Janeese Lewis George wins next week's primary and becomes D.C.'s next mayor, the federal government could take over the nation's capital.
He made those comments during an Oval Office meeting and when a reporter asked about Lewis George running a Zoran Mondani-style campaign focused on socialist policies. The reporter was referring to New York City's mayor and asked the president how he would feel if Lewis George won. This is how the president responded.
Well, I wouldn't like it, and maybe we'd take back Washington and run it on the federal basis. We won't put up with it. We're not going to lose our businesses. By the way, Washington now is a safe, beautiful place. People are coming, restaurants are thriving. The restaurants are all closed. Nobody wanted, now you can't get restaurant space, you can't get into it. We have a thriving community. We got rid of the crime.
News 4's Mark Seagrace joins us now. Mark, I know you recently sat down with the top two mayoral candidates, Janeese Lewis George, Kenyon McDuffie. I'm just curious, have either one of their campaigns reacted to what the president had to say?
Yeah, we have a statement from Janeese Lewis George. I'll paraphrase some of it and quote, we are not going to get ICE out of our streets by fearing this president. She goes on to say, threatening home rule because you do not like how residents vote is an attack on democracy itself. So this is part of the statement Janeese Lewis George just released moments ago. I can tell you, I am the one who told them about this statement happening in real time, so they're reacting to it in real time. We've reached out to the McDuffie campaign. We have not heard back from them yet, but you do know that if you see ads from the McDuffie campaign and from supporters of McDuffie, they call her a threat. And there's a lot of, insinuation that this might happen, that electing Janeese Lewis George could trigger President Trump to follow through with threats that he's been making for 2 years, back to the campaign trail that we've talked about, taking over Washington, D.C. and federalizing it. And Mayor Bowser has been successful in keeping that at bay so far. So people have been wondering about this and if this could trigger the president to do something. I will say the reporter who asked that question, it's hard to imagine that President Trump knows who Janeese Lewis George is, or if he even knows that there's an election going on in Washington, D.C. But the reporter not only compared him to Mondani, but called her a socialist. And so he kind of set the question up in a way to elicit the response that he got from the president. It's not surprising that the president would say that, but it certainly reignites those fears that D.C. residents have had for years now, that President Trump would federalize Washington, D.C.
It's been done before, but you mentioned Kenyon McDuffie's ad. Her ads also say she will fight Trump, as so many ads across the country are saying, but that can be easier said than done, as Mayor Bowser found out.
Right. There's, the president holds incredible power, as does Congress, over Washington, D.C., that they don't have over any other jurisdiction in the country. And we saw the president, as you pointed out, federalize the police department in his first year in office. And that ultimately expired, but we went through that, and we still have remnants of that with the cooperation with the Safe and Beautiful Task Force, which has kind of kept him again at bay from going any further. The president would need Congress to actually overturn home rule if he were to go that far. But if Janeese Lewis George, if he does it right after the primary, which is very much of a decider in past elections, or even if he waits to November, he still has a Republican House and Senate at his disposal. And they have shown a willingness to interfere and to work their power over Washington, D.C. at micro level and macro level. And so, this is a threat that people definitely have to take serious.
You're giving us a wrap, but I got a quick question for you. Could this help or hurt her?
Yes.
Both.
Yes.
Either way, it could be a wash.
Because there are people who are on the fence who are worried about this. This may embolden people who are anti-Trump and are thirsting for somebody. Like there are a lot of people in D.C. who really wanted Mayor Bowser to push back, and they're thirsting for that. They want somebody who's going to pick a fight with President Trump and push back. And so this may embolden them to say, hey, no, this is, we'll make these decisions. On the other hand, yeah, there are people who may be on the fence and are wondering and are really fearful of losing home rule and just don't want to risk it. So,
practical.
5 days out from the primary, this will definitely have an impact one way or another. But yeah, it could both hurt and help both candidates.
Please let us know when and if you hear from the Kenyon McDuffie campaign. I'm just curious what
and
they
our
will have to
Joseph
say as
Olmo
well.
is going to sit down with Janeese Lewis George this evening, so you'll hear that report at 11 o'clock.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Mark, thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it.